Are any of the keys still up in the air? Because I know when you announced for the New York Times, you said foreign policy, you couldn't really decide just yet.
Yeah, the foreign policy success key is up in the air, and so is the failure key. Imagine, I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know that against all odds, Biden negotiates a ceasefire and a hostage release in the Middle East. But this idea of an October surprise is the biggest myth about American presidential elections. My predictions before any such October surprise. For example, I made my prediction of a Trump win before the so-called Comey letter that reopened supposedly Clinton's email investigation, before the Access Hollywood tape that had Trump bragging about grabbing women by their private parts. Because the keys are the big picture of governance, they don't change easily. And there has never been a change, so-called October surprise, that has caused me to change my prediction. Let me say this. My predictions are very robust. Not only did they begin when I predicted Ronald Reagan's reelection in April 1982, nearly 3 years ahead of time, during what was then the worst recession since the Great Depression, when his approval ratings were down in the dumps. So I have a 40-year prediction record, but retrospectively, to develop the keys, I went all the way back to 1860, the election of Abraham Lincoln, when women didn't vote, African Americans were enslaved. We had no automobiles, no planes, no radio, no television. We were an agricultural society. So the keys have endured much greater changes in our society, in our economy, in our demography, in our politics than anything that's happened recently. But let me say, the keys are based on history. I'm not Speaker Mike Johnson, who claims the Almighty talks to him. And it's always possible there could be something so cataclysmic and so unprecedented that 160 years pattern of history could be broken. But the point is, you never know ahead of time. You can only know afterwards, which is why I don't change my keys on the fly. In 2008, the critics said to me, "Oh, you got to change your keys. We have an African American running for the first time. America's not ready for an African American. Or we have a woman running, or we have a candidate bragging about grabbing women by their private parts." To change a model on the fly, particularly a model with 160 years of history behind it, is a recipe for error.
So shy of a cataclysmic event, you're not changing your mind, you're not changing the keys in this race. The race is pretty much set in stone according to you. But I am most fascinated here about the economy keys, because there are two about the economy, and we are not in a recession based on the numbers. Based on voter sentiment, though, that is different. But voters are the ones going to cast their ballot in November. So why do you think voter sentiment doesn't matter when it comes to the economy?
It's not what I think, it's what history proves. My short-term economic key says there was no recession in the election year, which there isn't. No chance we're going to have a recession in less than 2 months. This is a key that's been proven to work with the other keys to successfully predict 160 years of American political history. You can't base a prediction on the ephemeral polls, which change a lot. For example, for a long time, Trump was way ahead of both Biden and then at first Harris in what voters thought about who would best handle the economy. That's now changed. She's pretty much caught up, and it's within the margin of error. Look, if you want to base predictions on these ephemeral voter sentiment polls, go right ahead. I encourage it. Develop your own system. Of course, there is no such system that's ever been successful, but develop your own system. But if you want to use my keys, you've got to stick with how the keys are very carefully defined and how they've been answered for 160 years.
Let's talk